Hang up. Were you counting?
No, I was making sure I got everybody.
I'm just happy to lucky tonight.
No, I'm glad.
Good. Right. I'd like to call to order the regular board meeting of Greeneview Local Schools, April 17th, 2025. The vision of Greeneview Local Schools is a community of learners, community of success today and tomorrow. And the mission of the Greeneview school community is to provide an excellent education in a safe and caring environment, preparing every student to succeed in a global society. Mrs. Fisher, will you please call the roll?
Suzanne Arthur is absent. Chris Bailey,
Here.
Jesse Connor,
Here.
Scott Powers,
Present.
Megan Smith.
Here.
We have a quorum.
I invite everyone to stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
You have it.
I'll second.
Mr. Bailey,
Yes.
Mrs. Connor,
Yes.
Mr. Powers,
Yeah.
Mrs. Smith.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, item E, invitation for public participation for agenda items only. Okay. Item 2, presentation, elementary school into math programming.
Before we start, could I, Dr. Woodruff, just give you guys a couple copies of like handout pieces? Some of them will be mentioned in the presentation as well. This is a student resource, and then this was.
Okay.
So.
All right. The source. Yeah.
I'll just start off by introducing myself. Dalton Pate, instructional coach, and this is.
I'm Emily. I'm a second grade teacher at Greeneview.
So really kind of our topic of conversation tonight will be about the math program, focusing on K-5. More specifically, both of us kind of representing grades 2 and 3 tonight. So when we look at it, over the past couple years.
Working. Sometimes it's finicky.
It's.
I'll give it a.
There we go. It's been over the last 3 years that we've kind of started and gone through the math process, something that I'll refer to tonight as our journey through math. We've evaluated and explored different programs. We piloted and tried a few of those last year. 2 of them kind of rose to the top that we ultimately tried in the elementary building and the middle school building for grades 4 and 5. Recently, we've entered the implementation phase with what our new math program looks like. We ended up settling on Into Math. That's the program that rose to the top. And we began using that at the beginning of this school year. Teachers in grades K-5 used a common rubric. That's the single sheet paper, double-sided, that I shared with each of you. And there's another slide that has some sticky notes on it too that we'll come to, where it talks about the scoring piece for that. And Into Math has 3 characteristics, both that the company has found to be true and also that we have found to be true. It kind of presents itself as both flexible, collaborative, and also rigorous. So when we go through our presentation tonight and talk about math together, those are the things that kind of rise to the top and we'll talk about as a theme. First step is explore and evaluate. So over the course of the last 3 years, this really started in school year 22-23. You can go to the next slide too if you'd like. We started looking at our current programs, or in some cases, the absence of a program. We looked at iReady. We started to dabble in what Ohio Department of Education said was a high quality instructional material. We also looked at ed reports to see which ones were ranked the highest in terms of like cross category, either K5, K3, K8, even K12. And then we even gave like an evaluation of our current program, which in some grade levels we really felt wasn't working or serving the needs of students and teachers. We started at that time just informally doing K3 math visits. So we took, and 4 and 5 as well, we took some visits to Cedar Cliff, to Troy, to Xenia, just to name a few. And then into the 23-24 school year, still with 4th and 5th grade doing some of their math visits, we started doing the pilot phase. Teachers had the option to pilot either Into Math or iReady. It was their choice. We used that same rubric that I shared with you, the single page, and we looked at those categories to kind of rank or score each program. And our goal ultimately was by the end of last school year to do the training piece, so that when we started this school year, we were ready to go. That meant we also had to purchase the new curriculum, start the math training, and be ready for this school year. These are kind of like the highlight pieces on that rubric that you have in front of you. It's the light gray section. Each of those, we kind of wanted a way that we could give a number or some sort of a score. So when we looked at curriculum features, and then there's some subcategories under that, we ranked them on a scale of 1 to 4. And when we did so, we happened to find that certain parts of each curriculum we were looking at had strengths, and each of the curriculums we looked at also had areas that they could grow or support us better in our needs. So there's a summary piece there from teachers across grades K5 when we were submitting scores for the program that we piloted. That's what scores came back to us as in terms of an average. The next step is implementing with integrity. That's kind of more of like this school year and where we're at in our journey. It started even at the end of last year, so we were ready to hit the ground running. As we go a little bit further, we'll dive into some of the personalized learning pieces. I know something in talking with Mrs. Brooks and Mrs. Hibner at the elementary. I just kind of framed the whole presentation tonight in terms of like a story, that both as teachers, we have a story to tell, and also so do the students. So I think the next slide shows, this was a resource actually from ODE that looked at a literacy implementation stage, but we've done a lot of literacy work, so it popped out as soon as we were looking at some reading things that like, ooh, this could also apply to just math because it's about implementation science instead of just reading. So in our current stage, we're kind of focused on materials and strategies, how we can use them consistently and efficiently. Pieces that are within Into Math that we keep seeing are collaboration, coaching, professional learning, and using feedback to also support a continuous improvement on the math instruction end. So some of those, I like how the colors even overlap as a visual. I put the arrow there because we're in between that full implementation and innovation, and really sustainability, kind of starting back to the very beginning. Some of the information that we've looked at saying that if we do it right from the beginning, when we're exploring and adopting, the sustainability pieces kind of take care of themselves, but we can keep it on the right track, if you will. So that's the implementation piece. And then I think it's Emily's turn for some of the personalized learning. And I think Dr. Woodruff's going forward for us.
Perfect. Again, I'm a 7th grade teacher. It's my 2nd year in 2nd grade and my 1st year with this curriculum. So I kind of just wanted to bring a different light to you guys of how does this curriculum actually work and what are the students saying about it. So again, I have a class this year of very different, a big variety of learners. So I have students with IEPs, and then I also have students who are identified as gifted. So I have a very wide range of abilities this year. So I've been able to figure out how to meet the students' needs of all of them in different ways too. And this curriculum has had a lot in it too. So if you want to go to the next slide, that'd be great. There's so many different ways that you can use Into Math. So when I'm teaching a whole class lesson, we use a lot of the hands-on material. So we're using a lot of manipulatives, we're using the workbook, and that is working wonderful. But for my higher students, I have really worked with challenging them too. Every single unit has a lot of modules in it too. And so at the beginning of each module, there's a pre-assessment, and then there are formative assessments at the end. So you can kind of see the data is extremely helpful online. So I assign a bunch of different assignments on the computer. Sometimes we use paper, it's on the paper too, but I kind of switch it up, and actually the students kind of beg me to assign online. They like that for some reason. I'm not sure why, but they love it online on the computer. So you can see the On the left, it says, "Are you ready?" Those are the pre-assessments, and then you can see there are just 2 students who are above level. There are 9 who are on level, and then the rest of them, there are 10 who are way below. And then what's really helpful about this curriculum is that off to the side, I know it's kind of hard to see back there, but it breaks down the standard. It's connected to the Ohio State standards. And then it tells you, oh, these students need help on this standard. This is what you need to help them with. So I've really enjoyed that, and you can see then their whole progress and growth throughout the whole entire year. So it's not just a whole even assignment, but you can see it throughout the whole year. On the right, it has reviews too. So at the beginning of the module and then at the end of the module, you have reviews, and you can see and really kind of examine the growth of students and how much they have grown. And then you can see based on this data where you need to fill in the gaps of students and what you need to do then. If you need to pull students in small groups, there's a couple of teachers in 2nd grade who will pull them and then reteach them that way. I assign a lot on the computer then too. So on the bottom of it too, it breaks down the students, has their names too, very hard to see that too, but it tells you like how much time they spent, and then which standard they even specifically need to be focusing on too, and then which standard they really excelled at. So the data part has been extremely, extremely helpful, and everyone's in grade really has been impressed about how well it's been working this year too. You can go on to the next one too. What I do then based on their results from the data of these tests is I can then assign different challenges and different independent work for my students. This year, I have some very unique students. I have 3 boys who are doing 3rd grade math. And so they have done all the 3rd grade math. And then I have 1 boy who has completed all 3rd grade math, and he's way into 4th grade math right now. So it's been really neat. I've never had students who I've been able to stretch this far. And I think that this curriculum is what's really helped me do that. So here's an example of one of the students' pages. You can assign challenges. They love the challenges. That's their absolute favorite. I will have students who skip everything else and then they go straight to the challenges. I'm like, well, wait, we've got to do it all. But there's engaging videos too in the curriculum that are really helpful. And a lot of times they'll include a puppet too. So I show those whole class in my whole class, but then I can assign it for each student to do based on the lesson they're at. And then that just shows you on the bottom that they are doing this work independently and they can see feedback too. I can respond to them and give them tips, and they can respond to me and see how they did. So it breaks it down really well. The students love it too. And again, the data piece from this is really extremely helpful. You can go on to the next one. So this kind of breaks down how there's my 4 boys right there who are doing this higher math. And it shows like the trends of all of the data. So you can see that first one, that independent assignment was really well. The next 2 challenges were kind of hard for them. And then the other assignments were good. That one challenge, someone skipped it. So you can kind of break down the data even more to see, and then you are able to help students and differentiate more and to help assign other problems for them for extra practice and for mastery. I always give them the module test ahead of time too for these 4 boys. And if they don't score 90% or higher, then they don't compact out and they can't go on to the 3rd grade math. So I'm able to then adjust to gaps, keep them in my room, and keep them having the high standards of mastery for 2nd grade too, which is what you want. You want them to keep on being high in the grade level too. So this has really been a wonderful experience for the boys too. It has been independent work, but it's also been so collaborative for them. I didn't realize that there would be such a great bond between these students. They knew each other and a couple of them were friends, but the bond between them and the collaboration in their learning has been so wonderful. And for me to see as a teacher, I'm teaching a whole nother class while they are out in the hallway doing their work. And so I can't stop all the time and help them. So they have to kind of figure out themselves and work together. And I've encouraged that all year long. And I've seen so much growth in the boys. The boy in the back was really high in math, and then the other boy up towards the front. Sorry, I'm like, my throat's hurting so bad. That's been a good day for me to present. And the boy up front was a little bit lower. So they started off the year helping each other. And I've seen the other boy who was lower is now higher than the other boy. So it's really neat how he has helped him so much to get higher to a higher level. So that has been really neat. They all really wanted to be here tonight, and the families would have been here of these 4 boys, but it was a birthday party for one of the boys literally at 6 o'clock. So they all were super bummed, but we decided to film a video because I think it's really important for you to hear it from the students' point of view and what they think about the learning, because all of these resources have been great and I enjoy assigning them. It's easy for me to assign. It breaks down the data so well. The standards are there, everything we want. But truly, from what I've seen, I think that this has given them such a great confidence in math. They love math even more. They were boys who loved math. My whole class loves math more. I feel like because of this, the curriculum, and they have just grown in so many different ways. They are better problem solvers. They want to do the harder word problems, which most kids don't want to do. They want to because they've been doing challenges and have been working so hard. They really have taken ownership of their learning and want to learn and grow. And whenever I keep them inside the classroom, it's a big, they're not happy that I have to say. It's we want to go out in the hallway and do our other math. So it's just created such a love of learning, which is my whole goal as a teacher. You want children to love learning. And so they have become such great independent critical thinkers. And so the next slide has a video of them, and you can watch that based on their thoughts to see their responses and feelings towards the. So.
And we wanted to share with you all of the unique ways that we have been doing math this year. TJ, how has doing math on a computer helped you this year?
Math has helped me get better at my math problems. And I feel more confident to start fifth grade next year because of all of the new math skills that I've learned this year. I've been able to teach entire class in a few times, and it has brought a lot of laughter and fun. My experience with math.
Kason, how has working with other people helped you in math?
It has been fun to work together on math problems with my friends. We are able to help each other answer really hard questions. I have helped other people get better at math, and they have helped me. I am able to focus and feel more excited to.
Corbin, what has been your favorite math skill that you have learned?
I have learned a ton this year. I'm doing fifth grade math now. I have enjoyed learning about really hard concepts. I have really liked learning religion, measuring fractions, and multiplication. I also like to do the time that it's learning. And even the students I don't really find good about it.
Holy, what do you like best about doing the math lessons on the computer?
Well, I like best about getting math with the learning, and that is all the challenges that I've learned my whole lifetime. Like I was thinking, you look ahead and keep learning all the things. I just need to find out. In October, and doing that, the deep overload, we already made friends with. I love that I can talk about this stuff and not from the phone.
It's the boy under. They got it very excited at the end to say go Rams. I was truly impressed with their answers. They came up with those like all by themselves, and I just wrote down what they did. And so just hearing their own thoughts too helps you kind of see how this curriculum has really helped. And I'm very proud of them and all the work they have done too. That last boy had just moved to October, to our school in October, if you hadn't heard him. And that is how he made friends. I didn't realize that even until he verbally said that. So that other piece was huge and wonderful to see that this curriculum has done other things, even besides just growing them so hugely in their academic experience, but their personal experience too has given them wonderful connections with each other. So.
Get to share some of the story from Mrs. Brooks's class in third grade and also Mrs. Hibner's. Mrs. Brooks wanted to be here tonight, but she's double booked with 2 baseball games, so that wasn't going to be possible. So it felt like a responsibility to still share both the student side, but also her side too. There wasn't this plan at the beginning of the year to call a blue folder group or a yellow folder group in Mrs. Hibner's class. It just kind of evolved. She had folders. She knew she wanted to differentiate and give some like individual or personalized lessons to some of the students for math. They happen to be blue folders. The kids really got hooked on that, and now it's considered the blue folder group. Each module, when kids are doing a pretest in Mrs. Brooks's class, and it's a yellow folder group, they look a little different, which I think still speaks to the flexibility of into math too. That teachers can choose to make the group flow however they want. It could be like Miss Etzel's, it could be like Mrs. Brooks, or even Mrs. Hibner's. And I also think that there was this power in that all students were given the module pretest. So we're not just saying that it's for gifted kids. Some might be gifted, some might just be high achieving. And when we're thinking about how we can grow students, it was important to us that all of them got to be included in the pretest. So any of them who earn a 90%, as Ms. Edsel said, or higher, can compact out and start to not only master the current grade level skills, but be stretched and look ahead to the next grade level, or maybe even 2. When the lessons are longer and the modules are about 5 lessons, then that also allows for some project-based learning too to take place instead of it just being paper or digital. You heard last month too, when Mrs. Wydell presented some of the things that iReady was doing. And I think in 2nd and 3rd grade, they're making connections to iReady too, just in a different way. One of the ways 3rd grade is using it, Mrs. Brooks and Mrs. Hibner assigned math lessons specific to stretch those students who are in their blue folder or yellow folder group. They're also getting a chance to collaborate and conference with their students. They also are able to model for students what that looks like student to student. So it doesn't just always have to be teacher driven. It can actually be empowering students to have math conversations and be more successful as it relates to their academics. There's another video piece. I did 2 only because I wanted both classrooms who weren't able to come tonight to be represented. The first one is going to be for Mrs. Brooks's kiddos. There's 3 boys that have primarily gone through almost the entire year and done lots of blue folder group work and test out. I was amazed that they rattled off the module that mattered the most to them, like stuck out to me. Module 11, you'll hear it in here. And it was like, okay, so what was module 11? Thankfully, Mav, the last one, answers that question for us. And then we'll get to Mrs. Hibner's.
That's because 90% were high, and that's what us 3 did, so we're in. And for those of you who may ask, there have been instances where there have never been a blue folder. And what a pretest is something where it's a test for the next module or chapter in math. Not all of us have always gotten a blue folder group. On some occasions, we won't, and on other occasions, we will. We can just never predict when they'll get in.
What's the most challenging skill or module you've done so far?
I would do module 11 because when the pretest came, I was clueless. I was really confused about this module 17. I was really confused because I had no idea what grams or kilograms or what was. I don't know. I would also say module 11 because, I mean, when I got that pretest and it was all about perimeter and area, when it was a perimeter question, I was multiplying and not adding, and I was clueless.
They were really excited to be able to share their story, but also like feel a little bit of reward for the hard work that they've put in this year. Another aspect to it too is on the iReady side, they have the ability to do teacher assigned lessons like I had mentioned. So from the teacher side, this is what it looks like for Mrs. Brooks or Mrs. Hibner. They can assign up to 10 lessons at once. They can search by grade, they can search by name of lesson, they can even look at domain. If we were to get, for instance, an EL student, we have multiple languages that we could choose from, which we got to see some of that in other schools, especially Troy, who had like 50 different languages spoken, and they were all succeeding with iReady, which was really cool to see. What it looks like in Mrs. Hibner's classroom is a little bit different. Her kids work more independently, but then they come together and meet with her and collaborate. So there were two students, instead of showing you the paper side, I asked if they would be able to tell the story about iReady. So this will connect a little bit back to what Mrs. Wydell had shared last week, but it'll be the math side of things. And this one will be Jace and Robbie from Mrs. Hippner's class.
Hello, my name is Jace and I am working on teacher assigned lessons, on iRead, on multiplying and dividing by fractions. I am part of the folder group in Miss Hibner's class, and I'm doing this because I've already passed the pre-test for this math module. It's good, Into Math is good for me because it helps me stretch my brain when I already know what's going on in class. Hi, I'm Robbie. I'm in Miss Hibner's class too. We're working on fractions in my folder group. I have my path lessons on fractions because I finished all my teacher assigned lessons. I worked on liquid math on iReady, which made Into Math easier for me.
That was a little glimpse into some of how they're stretching. Module 16 and 17 for grade 3 are actually pretty short. It came after about 5 or 6 modules on just fractions, which is a pretty big 3rd grade standard. This talks a little bit about the pre-test piece. So it doesn't put the same test in front of kids twice. There's a pre-test that they use for test A and also a test B. So the program creates that so teachers don't have to create something separate or different. It saves time, but also it gives students a chance to grow from point A to point B when we're testing them. If they test out with 100% at the beginning, then I believe most of the 3rd grade teachers are taking that initial score. But if a student does poorly on a pretest, that doesn't mean that that's their grade for the module. It just helps the teacher know this is where I really need to like drill down and focus in terms of certain standards or skills for students. And the next slide is the staple packet that I shared with each of you. That was from Mrs. Brooks's class. I went in and asked if she had a student sample just so you could see what some of the work they're doing collaboratively. They too sit outside along the lockers in the 3rd grade hallway. There's been as many as 8. And as one of them said, I think it was Riley in the video, there have been none. So if it doesn't match students and they're not ready for that math content, then those kids just stay in the classroom. And it's also helped them to see that not every time do we have the expectation that we're going to be in a special group with the blue folders too, building some of like their social emotional strength, if you would. So when we looked at the data, this feels inconclusive and a little bit premature, but just looking from fall of last year to winter of last year and fall of this year to winter of this year, school years, we were at the K3 building, 59% growth for students in the first semester. This year with a new program, we're at 69. So we're starting to look at like very beginning trends, and we hope, just like we have focused with reading, that with our intentionality to math and applying some of those same principles, we'll start to see our math growth take off just as much as we have reading. So last slide, this piece feels like it's connected. Continuous improvement throughout all the pieces. When Emily and I had met once during her plan period this week, there's a networking connection at the top of each of those, and I couldn't quite figure out like a representation or an analogy to go with the gears. She said something sort of profound, which was if you took any of those gears away, there wouldn't really be the same flow, or it wouldn't work in quite the same way. So we have to have all those pieces, if you would, of instructional materials, professional learning, coaching and collaboration, data as well to drive what we're doing, and sustainability. So when we look across K3 and even in grades 4, 5 at the middle school, it's each of those pieces. It's not really like a pinpoint at any given time that we're just kind of going through the phase of implementation now. So that's all I have.
Great. Anybody have any questions?
No.
Councilwoman Renee?
Awesome work.
Okay, thank you both very much.
Thank you so
Appreciate it.
much.
You're certainly welcome to stay, but also if you wanted to slide out before board business, that's okay.
All right. Item 3, superintendent's update. Dr. Wicker?
Thanks, Diana. Here's a agenda back up for us. I'm really so proud to hear about the work, first of all, that's happening both at the elementary school and our middle school. Just as a reminder, we have into math in grades K-5, and then the adoption in grades 6 through 12 was reveal math. So in our first year of implementation, certainly they touched on it and we talked about it here. Like, we'd certainly like to see some of that growth in literacy also into math and, well, in math. And so now with the appropriate resources, but I love the gears analogy with all of those pieces working together, but it does start with effective and evidence-based instructional materials. So happy for those that could make it. They did some great improvising because we were hopeful that kids could be here this evening, but they made it work. So thank you to them again. Just a little bit more on teaching and learning. We are working on putting together a summer camp here in June. So previously we had held like more of a like intervention or repeated practice of grade level content centers in reading and math. That summer programming was funded through our ESSER funds. And so without the use of those ESSER funds, we were really exploring different ways in which we could still offer some kind of summer programming. And the Jamestown Area Foundation stepped up to say that they would be willing to fund something. We pitched an idea and put a proposal together that was more of like a STEAM type lens. And our idea, although still in development, is to do like a theme each week for 3 weeks. So the themes right now that we have penciled in are arcade engineering adventures. So inspired by the documentary Kane's Arcade, students in the camp will design their own cardboard arcade. And ultimately students will end up playing the games. A second theme would be Flutter and Fay Garden Lab, where students in the camp would work together to research native pollinators in order to build a pollinator garden. And then the third title that we have kind of penciled in right now, Indigenous Ingenuity and Innovation, where students would explore the rich cultural heritage and engineering ingenuity of the Native American tribes through hands-on activities. So really unique, interesting. Think about also like the leadership now of Mrs. Angela Bryant and working through just makerspace and creative and innovative ways to explore topics that students are interested in. And I'm sure that, you know, coding, whether drones, using maybe 3D printers, like all of those pieces would be embedded in that. So right now we're looking at probably 2 grade bands 1 through 3 and 4 through 6. And there would actually be a fee with this particular one, in addition to the funding from the Jamestown Area Foundation for the instructional materials. So right now we are selecting staff to be able to teach in that science camp, and then registration for students will go out probably more toward the end of the month or beginning of May. So exciting, fun stuff. And again, thank you to the Jamestown Area Foundation for all their support, so we can offer summer programming. Start class here. For our kindergarten registration, we only had 65 students register, and so that's a low number for us. I don't know if that's just going to be a smaller class or it's kind of early if we're not in the quite headspace yet, but we typically have more that register during those 2 days in April. And this year, 65 students. State testing has begun in the district. So at this point, everyone, or at least is in process, if they've been absent or something, has taken their ELA, their language arts test, in those grades where there is a language arts test. High school, middle school courses and scheduling decisions are being made, and we're down to crunch time to putting a schedule together and then registering students for classes. And really just graduation is right around the corner. Graduation is May 16th. It's at 7 o'clock, as it always is, at the Dixon Ministry Center at Cedarville University. Board members, you should be getting an invitation if you haven't already received that. From a facility standpoint, we are really prioritizing many of the needs in the district. There's a series of like not great news here. So we have a roof leak at the middle school that is going to need addressed as soon as we can. Really make sure that we get the quotes and decide on the right person to do that. It's unfortunate that building's only 13 years old, but we've had at least 2 people out to look at it to really just kind of analyze what we need to do. So that is probably going to be a new roof. At least over the cafeteria area. where it is the worst because that is leaking into that area and it's doing some damage within the building structure. So that has risen to the top of the list. Unfortunately, and with all the rain we've had recently, really have been made aware that it needs to be addressed and dealt with sooner than later. The winds that came through here a couple of weeks ago demolished the visitors dugout at the baseball field. So we're working with insurance on next steps with that. In fact, we just heard back from the insurance adjuster today. The baseball coach is interested in making more improvements to the field, but really with some significant costs to the district right now. The district isn't in a great financial position to be able to do anything with that at this time. But the coach believes that he might be able to raise some additional funds. So in addition to improve, bringing back or building back the visitor dugout, that maybe some other improvements would be made. So we're happy to support that. And he believes that maybe he could raise some funds to be able to do that. But we'll work with Mr. Reinhardt to make sure that we follow appropriate processes and protocols as it relates to how a public entity and how our schools must work through a process like that. It's just unfortunate too, obviously during the season, it's making it challenging. And I'd like to share some information about the multi-purpose building. The project itself is going well. Conger Construction has completed the plumbing connection. They did the plumbing over spring break, going through the ag room. They were able to do that without any disruption to the educational process. It was complete when the students came back from spring break. And so that was really done well. The project is moving along. In fact, they're actually trending ahead of schedule. And so we anticipate that the project still will be done by summer. However, Inga and I received an email from the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce, ODU, April 2nd, letting us know that on March 28th, that the state education agencies had been informed by the U.S. Department of Education that the late liquidation requests for COVID funds were not being honored. And the department recommended to pause projects immediately. I responded immediately, expressing my concern and my frustration. I provided specific details about our project, included pictures. So, I mean, if you've been out there, if you've seen it lately, we still don't have doors. So you have a structure that's open to the elements. You have materials outside of the structure. It's a construction zone. So, the landscape and whatnot is still in disrepair. There's no climate control, right, on what we have up already. The Ohio Department of Education was empathetic and expressed that they were doing everything that they could as well. We have a great relationship with our representative and that they were doing everything that they could advocate and were seeking more clarification. So yesterday, we heard again from the Ohio Department of Education and that they had received additional information, but the U.S. Department of Education was requiring districts to do their late liquidation application process again. So go through the same process. We received that survey, we received that application yesterday, we completed it and returned it immediately. We verified receipt at the Ohio Department of Education. It is due this coming Wednesday. So it's actually moving rather quickly as far as government agencies are concerned. The questions did not surprise us. They were essentially the same questions that we received the first round. We've sent letters of concern to both our Ohio legislators as well as our US congressmen and others. And I'm going to be making phone calls, if not tomorrow, Monday, asking for support. And I actually think that letters from the board would go a long way too. I actually have a draft template that I could share with you. And that was encouraged to us by the Ohio Department of Education to say that if you had some letters of support that you could package with your second application, that it would certainly go a long way. So I do not believe, again, we've been advised to stop all work related. I want to be clear about that, but I don't believe that stopping this project is practical. For all the reasons that I had just explained. We have a building that's incomplete, open to the elements. We also have a contract. We are in a contracted agreement with Conger Construction who is under a very specific timeline. They squeezed our project in the first place. They are doing it in record time. They are doing an excellent job and are supposed to be out of here within the next 2 months. And again, as I shared, they are trending ahead of schedule. We're obligated to finish this project with them. To reiterate, we really have attended to all of the federal requirements. We've been diligent in making sure that we followed all the processes to ensure stability and access of the funds in the appropriate way. I believe completing this facility is in the best interest of our students. It's in the best interest of our community. 18 other schools, by the way, are in the same boat in the state. 18 other schools applied for a late liquidation request and it was approved. And so they're kind of in the same boat. I would also add that we're not the only state that is experiencing this right now. And in fact, other states, so we are told, I can't name who state, but so we are told that they are suing the US Department of Education. Where that lands, I'm not sure where it will, over this same kind of idea. Like candidly, we've been blindsided by the US government. So in consultation with our representatives and our legal counsel, just this week, Monday, we met with, again, legal counsel and Inga especially, as well as Brick and Graydon has been in consultation with ODU and those who might have information. We believe that the best course of action is to finish the project. Again, we're under contract with Condor, that they need to be paid. And on the agenda tonight, therefore, we'll be asking for your approval of the transfer of funds from the general fund to what is called a capital project fund, which is a better way to show the expenditure of capital funds. We believe this makes the most current sense under the circumstances. And of course, the goal is that ultimately we are going to be reimbursed through the late liquidation, the second late liquidation application process. And then those funds would, go back to the general fund, if you will, or they would be reimbursed back to the general fund. That pretty much, I think, takes us up to date. I'll be honest, I spoke with someone today who has been part of Bricker and Graydon and working with legislators and our Department of Education. She said she's been doing this 44 years and she's just never seen anything like it. So she was empathetic, she was sympathetic, she said to hang in there, and I believe everyone, I hope through the support of everyone here that we can, get back to honor what was originally satisfied, and once we're able to produce the documentation and the information that is needed, that it will be honored.
Should I add that, so we were approved, through every process on February 18th. And the way that it works with the grant funds, I have to request reimbursement from the state through what is our CCIP program. So I did that right away on February 18th. And you can only have one cash request in process at a time. And it wasn't approved, it wasn't approved, it wasn't approved. So had that one been approved and we got reimbursement, I could have submitted another one, but I was not able to do that. So they did tell us that request, that original request we made, was submitted to the federal government. Whether or not they will approve that request is still up in the air, but we did actually get one request in before they shut everything down. So we're hopeful that not only that request gets approved, but of course that everything else is approved too. But I just want to let you know that.
We wanted to share all of that with you and make sure that you had the full details. And again, you'll be voting tonight. The board has to approve a resolution to transfer funds. And so now you have the entire context of why that is also on the board agenda. And finally, through operations, I'll give you some league news, some OHC scoop. Riverside Local from DeGraff is going to be replacing Greeneview in the OHC, and that competition will begin in 2027 and 2028 school year. So we're still a ways out, but big decisions really been finalized. And I think Riverside Local still has to pass a resolution as part of somewhat of a formality, but it is public knowledge. And so I guess some of the negatives to that is that the distance is that it's a bit of a distance away. I don't believe they offer soccer, tennis, or wrestling. So they don't have those particular sports. However, They have traditionally played 3 of the Champaign County schools, West Liberty, Salem, Triad, Mechanicsburg, and Northeastern has also played them in a number of sports. So they do have a community, and what the league determined was similar to ours. And the sports that they have participated in have proven to be very competitive. So that is kind of where that all landed. Another item that I wanted to share with you this evening is that we had to purchase a new maintenance truck. Because the maintenance truck that we had that did a lot of the work finally died on us. If I'm being candid, like, I'm surprised it kind of lasted this long, but it had 9 lives. But finally, for a multitude of reasons, it was time to look for a new truck. So it wasn't an easy job because I had to check a lot of boxes. It needed to be wired for a snowplow. It also would be helpful if it could hold the salt spreader. Also a place for tools. What else? It needed to be heavy enough that it could pull a loaded trailer. So believe it or not, there were a lot of, like, those aren't easy to find. I don't know, we believe that we found one, I think it was actually in Beaver Creek. It was a new
Kings Automall.
Kings Automall. It was a new 2024 truck that we were able to get under 70,000. So hopefully that truck will serve this district well for a long, long time. But it did check all the boxes that we were looking for. And finally, and I know Inga's gonna hit on the highlights of this during our discussion session, this evening and talk more about it. She's gonna share with us how the House Finance Committee introduced and passed a substitute version of House Bill 96, which modifies the governor's original proposal, of the state budget. And she's gonna go through, the potential negative impacts that it could have on our district, as well as several other districts as well, and will impress upon you the effects of limiting the district's general cash balance carryover especially. And while some of the pieces might sound reasonable on the surface, it could really have some serious consequences for many schools, but specifically for Greeneview schools that she'll share more in detail. So that was a heavy superintendent's update this evening. And I don't want to just forget to say that tomorrow there is no school. It's a 3-day weekend, and I hope everyone also enjoys the Easter holiday weekend. So thank you, Mr. Bailey. That concludes my superintendent's update.
Thank you. Questions? No?
So we don't have any, sorry, yeah, apparently I do. So we don't have any idea of a timeline on when
No
they may
idea.
or may not approve the new late liquidation application.
Yeah. And not a lot of inside, Mrs. Fisher. It was good timing, in my opinion, that Mrs. Fisher was out of Wasco. And so was among other districts that were impacted, as well as the Ohio Department of Education folks, financial advisors, etc. So what feels good is that everyone's on deck. And everyone is supporting and trying to figure out how they can help in each and every way for the state of Ohio in general.
Okay. Item 4, treasurer's report. A, approve the minutes of the regular board meeting, March 20th, 2025. B, approve the March financial reports. C, approve March month-end advances. D, approve amended appropriations for March 2025. E, approve adjusted estimated receipts for March 2025. F, approve transfer of $12,197.67 from the tournament fund to the high school athletic fund from net proceeds from hosting OHSAA tournaments. G, approve resolution authorizing a transfer of $450,000 from the general fund to the 070-0000 multipurpose building capital projects fund. H, approve preschool tuition rates for the 2025-2026 school year. I, approve donations as listed. $2,250 from Bellbrook Canoe Rental for sand for the long jump pit. $500 from Jaden and Kyla Greenwood for the Dave Driscoll Memorial Scholarship. $500 from Mark and Cindy Mash for the Terry Pickering Memorial Scholarship. $100 from Janet Jackson for the Terry Pickering Memorial Scholarship. $200 from Gregory and Constance Van Zant. to the Terry Pickering Memorial Scholarship. Item J, approve treasurer's report A through I as presented. Any questions, comments?
The transfer from the tournament fund to the athletic fund is a requirement by the auditor of state. We have to run OHSAA tournaments through an agency fund that just kind of collects the money and then spends it out. So once the tournaments are completed for the year, then we can transfer that into the athletic fund. So that's what that transfer is about. Is there any other questions?
Just as a fellow accountant, I am also not a fan of moving money from the general
No, I
fund.
know
People
you're,
have to,
I know,
but
I
I
know.
think all the reasons explained make sense. You can't leave a half-finished building open. We are under contract with the company, so I don't know that we have much choice.
I
So
agree. I mean, it doesn't feel good, and I don't think anyone here thinks that it does, but we're this far in, and I don't think that it would be wise or behoove the district or our students to just leave it as is.
cause more damage later down the line. So thank you for the additional information. That helps paint the picture.
I do have one question about it. Is that the total that we still owe, that 450, or is that just the first set of payments for
No,
construction?
that is half. So half will come out of our PI fund and half out of the capital projects fund if you approve the transfer.
All right, I would entertain the motion to approve the treasurer's report.
You have it.
I'll second.
Mr. Daly,
Yes.
Mrs. Connor,
Yes.
Mr. Powers,
Yeah,
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Arthur is absent. Motion passes.
All right. Item 5, new business. A, approve Britt DeWitt to attend and present at the 21st annual 2025 National School Safety Conference in Las Vegas, Nevada. B, approve Student Protective Agency, Inc. as the student insurance carrier for the 2025-2026 school year. C, approve updated board policies. D, approve the MOU between Greeneview Schools and the Greeneview Education Association regarding wages for summer school teachers for summer of 2025. E, approve new business items A through D as presented.
Yeah, I have some comments on it, actually, maybe all of these items, a few of these items. So as part of the certified negotiated contract, teachers as part of their own professional growth are, it's negotiated or bargained that they can use $500 toward professional learning. Usually the board doesn't hear about those pieces because that is not something that really makes it to the board. The reason that it is on the agenda this evening is because Ms. DeWitt is going out of state, and anything regarding an out-of-state trip has to be board approved. So again, for the contract, teachers, certified staff members are allotted that $500 a year. So this is a professional learning opportunity for her. Actually, the title of the presentation is Yellow Flags and What to Do with Them, a Preventative Approach to School Safety. So again, on her own, she submitted a presentation, an application to be able to present as part of the National School Safety Conference and was accepted and able to present. So she is there on her own professional learning and venture. And those funds again are part of, like, she is not representing Greeneview in a way that's like Greeneview's doing a presentation. This is her professional learning and part of her professional learning program. So I don't know if I explained that well. Congratulations on being selected to present at a national conference, because I'm always nudging everyone to go present or try. Mr. Davis has presented, I believe, at the Google conference or as part of the tech conference. So this is a biggie. It's out of state. And so the mileage actually needs approved in association with that. So I think I covered all the pieces, which is why you normally don't see something like that. Let's see, I also, the board updates, so why this is kind of coming in at a time when we don't typically approve board policies. Let's see, which one is there first? Well, the purchasing and bidding, I believe you had already approved, is that the one we had already approved? They're out of order. The purchasing and bidding, you had already approved at the last update, but for whatever reason, it got uploaded into the board doc system, the one that we use, and it was not accurate, so we had to, I'm asking you to board approve it again, because what got submitted, I think it's an error on Neola's side, but just to make sure, we wanted to make sure that we board approved it again. And specifically what's related to that policy is that the building threshold, for 2024 is at 75,000 and automatically increases each year by 3%. So again, that's something that has already been board approved. The policy related to release time for religious instruction during the school day. This is an update regarding House Bill 8. And really, the only language that was added there, or is a little tweak from the last time we saw something like this, is it is imperative that the person who's running the program speak to the superintendent or the person who is the decision maker in that. The other updates to the student supervision and welfare, there are 3 of those because they fall into 3 categories. And again, in response to House Bill 8, we are not allowed to groom students, to paraphrase. And then last but not least, the 6220, the budget preparation policy. So you'll hear more about cash balance reserve tonight as part of the discussion section, but we wanted to make sure that we had it in policy about how cash balance reserves were identified. Or the policy in which we work from. If we didn't have a policy, then we would have to pass a resolution, I believe, every year. So to keep from passing a resolution every year, we thought it'd be best for this to live in policy. And Mrs. Fisher, do you want to hit the highlights of that, or here it is?
I printed it, but it's in that file.
Yeah,
So like Dr. Woodruff said, it did say in our policy that the board would annually approve a resolution. So we wanted to just make it easier, not have to do that and have it live in policy. So we wanted to make sure that our district didn't fall below 90 days of operating cash. So that's our minimum. And then our maximum is 150. I don't see that.
Yeah.
Oh, there it is. I was like, 150. So if it goes above 150, then Dr. Woodruff and I have to go look through our strategic plan and see how we can make sure that, we can bring it back down. So basically, we just wanted to have a policy in place to address that. And you see that in my forecast every year. I give you a graph that shows the days of operating cash on hand, so.
and then every year at this time, we've been fortunate enough to do an MOU between Greeneview Schools and the GEA so that we can pay wages for summer school teachers at the $50. So again, the Jamestown Area Foundation, thankful to them that we're still able to offer that. That's why you see it every year. The only thing that I didn't want to say, I don't want to miss it in relationship to Ms. DeWitt's presentation, is that although it's a school safety conference, that the focus is in her wheelhouse as it pertains to prevention. So the prevention and intervention and support to students and adults, so that we don't end up in a crisis situation. So we have done a PD that for the district in that. I think if it wasn't last year, it might have been the year before. They're running together now, but in the vein of prevention and intervention, so that we're not in a situation where we're practicing school safety policy. I think that's it.
Questions? Good. Okay. I entertain a motion to approve new business items A through D as presented.
Second. Mrs. Connor,
Yes.
Mr. Powers,
Yeah,
Mrs. Smith,
Yes,
Mrs. Arthur is absent, and Mr. Bailey.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Item 6, personnel. Approve the following administrative contract recommendations. Peyton Fisher, 3-year contract, Andy McCarty, 3-year contract, Bill Hayes, 1-year retire rehire. B, approve the following classified substitutes for the 2025-2026 school year. Mia McCarty, building aide. C, approve the following volunteers for the 2024-2025 school year. Holly Hudson, Jody Jacobs, Clint Connor, Rebecca Briggs. D, approve the resignation of Ashley Bowling, grade 6 science teacher, effective July 31st, 2025. E, approve the resignation of Dylan Walsh, high school evening custodian, effective April 11th, 2025. And F, approve personnel items A through E as presented.
I got a question. Should she?
Yeah, I need to abstain from C.
Probably should have pulled it, didn't get in front of it, next time.
Do we
So
wanna pull C individually and vote on it separately? Or is she gonna have to abstain to all of them?
She would have to abstain, but because it's a consent agenda, she would have to abstain from all of it. I mean, we still have a quorum.
Okay,
Um,
just wanted to make sure.
We still have a forum, unless you
Okay,
do surprises.
I move.
Second.
Okay, sorry. Mr. Powers?
Yeah.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Arthur is absent. Mr. Bailey?
yes.
Mrs. Connor?
Abstain.
Motion passes.
Item 7, discussion only. A, newly issued Title VI compliance requirement. B, state budget. C, board member updates.
So I wanted to share with you, we'll get it one of these times, you know what I'm saying? I just wanted to share with you that at the discretion of the United States Department of Education, the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce is requiring superintendents to certify that their districts are in compliance with federal laws prohibiting discrimination. And so, and also since like the certification acknowledges that we have federal funds, and those are contingent upon compliance with all federal non-discrimination laws. So to paraphrase, I am being asked and required to certify by tomorrow that when it comes to our hiring policies, that we do not discriminate, that we do not provide preferential treatment, and that we participate in fair hiring practices. So I feel confident in that, as you've heard me say. The best person for the job gets the job, and so therefore, I have confidence in certifying and providing that information to the Ohio Department of Educational Workforce, who then will share it with the U.S. Department of Education. So you have a full document there that I've shared with you to see exactly what I am signing and will be submitting by tomorrow. So I didn't know if you had any questions about that, but this is your opportunity to essentially say, yes, we agree that you should certify, or if you had any concerns or questions, I wanted to give you an opportunity to address them during the discussion session.
Moving on to,
Seeing no further
Yeah.
discussion, we'll move on then, yeah, to the state budget. So we'll spend some time on this one.
yeah. I wanted to give you an update on what has been happening with House Bill 96, which is the budget bill covering the next 2 years biennium, FY26 and FY27. I'm gonna start with what the governor proposed and then go to where we are today. In your handout, the first page gives you a timeline of the budget process, and you can, the red arrow shows where we are currently. Testimony will begin in the Senate at the end of this month and continue into May. Where they'll have budget hearings, and then the Senate will release their version of the budget. Then after the Senate does that, they vote, then the House and the Senate come together in a conference committee and hopefully come together and come up with a new version. And then that version goes back to the governor. So that's the way, that's a quick explanation of how that process will work. It's moving very quickly. So that's why all this information is very important. When the governor released his version in February, it contained many educational provisions, but the main ones would be that it does continue the Fair School Funding Plan. It would implement the final 2 years of the phase-in. And it updates our local capacity data, which is our property values and our income for the community. It did not update the base cost inputs. It kept those at FY 22 levels. So when the funding simulations were released, originally for Greeneview, it had projected that we would would receive almost 237,000 less in FY 26 than we did in FY 25. And then in FY 27, we would receive 568,000 less than we would have in FY 26. Statewide, 343 districts lost money in FY 26 and 360 lost money in FY 27. So moving on to the House, in late March, they released their version of the budget bill, and then they passed the substitute House bill last week. The highlights, I don't really call them highlights, but the main items to note is that they made sure that no traditional school district would receive less in FY 26 and FY 27 than it did in FY 25. They provided an additional $226 million for public school districts allocated over the biennium. For Greeneview, the projections show that we would receive approximately 25,000 more in FY 26 than in 25, and then 12,000 more in FY 27 as compared to FY 26. So we got some more, but it sure is not a lot.
It's better than losing 250.
It is,
losing
it is,
500.
that is correct. I agree with you. The
I was the optimist here.
Please
He might have
keep
to take
thinking that, keep
yeah.
thinking that. The substitute bill did replace the Fair School Funding Plan with a different formula, which they have referred to as a bridge formula. So while the Fair School Funding Plan remains in law, the ODU is prohibited from distributing payments to the districts under the Fair School Funding Plan. They have to give each, I'm just going with traditional districts here, an amount of temporary foundation funding. It's kind of like a guarantee, which again says that we're not going to get less than we got in 25. So the big whopper is that they have also approved the provision that caps the district's general fund at 30% of the prior year's expenditures. We now have, not only do we have to send the 5-year forecast to ODU and the auditor state, we now also have to send it to the County Budget Commission. County Budget Commission consists currently of the county auditor, the county treasurer, and the county prosecutor. They are proposing to change the county prosecutor to the president of the county board of commissioners. So that's another thing that they're proposing. So what it does, it requires the county budget commission to reduce property tax rates for any district whose general fund is above that 30% of the prior year expenditures. They will reduce the property tax rates in the following tax year if they have an excess of the carryover. They even have added an amendment that clarifies that they may reduce current expense levy rates even below the 20 mil floor. So it says, it specifically states that these reductions shall be made without regard to maintaining the reduction limit imposed under Ohio Revised Code. It requires that a notice be provided on the tax bills that go out to taxpayers that indicates that they have a reduced amount on their bill. And the actual verbiage says, the school district taxes shown due on this bill are reduced only for the current year due to the school district's excess carryover balance. I did forget to put this in there, but I'll provide it to you later. Not only are those, the substitute House bill, all of that information, there are, I would say, between 15 and 20 other bills proposed that have to do with property taxes in some way or another. And I will get you that listing. I thought I forgot to put that in there. House Bill 186 is one of the serious, one that is a serious concern to us. It reduces the amount, reduces or caps the amount of tax revenue growth a district who is at the 20 mil floor can receive. If the growth, oh, sorry, it is in there. It's not in my copy.
Oh, do you want mine?
No, that's okay. I have a million in my office. So if the growth exceeds inflation as measured by the gross domestic product indicator, then they will cap that, and they will cap it at that percentage of inflation growth. It doesn't provide any reimbursement to the district for the taxpayer credit. Whereas we have the homestead and rollback that reduce a taxpayer's tax bill. But in that case, the state reimburses us for those lost amounts. In this case, they won't be doing that. So what now? What are the concerns? What do we do next? As far as the Fair School funding plan, we are thankful that no school district receives less than the budget in less than the budget than they have received in FY 25. But we still need to reaffirm our strong support for the Fair School funding plan and the continued phase in. This plan was developed over many years. School district treasurers, school district superintendents, lawmakers, they all met and came together many times with using Ohio specific school data. And it provided the best efforts to create a funding system that was equitable split in funding between local and state share. As we know, no formula will ever be perfect, but the Fair School funding plan is the best efforts to create a system that objectively answers what it takes to educate students in Ohio. Because the base cost inputs are still based on outdated FY 22 numbers, they don't reflect today's rising costs of educating students. And we all know how much costs have increased since FY 22. They continue to update the local capacity data, which is the revenue side, but they don't increase the cost inputs or the expenditure side. So that causes the formula to be out of balance. I have included a table, it's this table right here, that gives you a picture of how the formula actually works when it's implemented the way we want it to be. In FY 22, that was the first year of the Fair School funding plan, and they used FY 18 base cost inputs. So then FY 23, they kept the FY 18 base cost inputs, and the state share went down from 41.6%. This is statewide, I should say, to 40.6%. But then in FY 24, they updated the base cost inputs to FY 22 values, and you can see that the state share percentage of funding went up to 43.3%. Going to FY 25, keeping the base cost inputs the same, state funding decreased to 38.4%. And you can see if they continue to keep those base costs not updated at the FY 22 values, the state share of the funding percentage is going to continue to go down. I also have a graph in here that shows Greeneview itself and shows how the formula, it's the goal, what the goal is to have an equity of funding from the state and from the local community. And this graph shows how it works, because in FY 22, we had 46.26% state percentage of funding. Our state funding percentage was 46.26%. There were no updates to the cost inputs going into FY 23, and our state funding share dropped to 44.7%. When we updated the base cost inputs in FY 24, our state funding share percentage went to 49.29, which is almost perfect. The goal, like I said, the goal is to have an equal split among the two. But as they continue not to implement those base cost inputs, you can see that our state funding share percent continues to decline each year. So what that means is we're losing money from the state. So to make up that money, we're going to have to go back to the voters. As far as the 30% cap goes, I know that it may sound reasonable, but it could have serious consequences. One of our principals said it best, basically that we are being penalized for saving. So the cap overlooks the unique circumstances of each district in the state. Every district has a specific reason why they have a cash balance and what they're saving for. A cash reserve reflects conservative budget practices and the need to prepare for uncertainties. You know that I am a conservative, and that's what I mean. I have to be. As we can see, we had to buy a maintenance truck. We've had two insurance things for building problems this year. So we've worked hard to be financially responsible and forward thinking. We maintain a healthy cash balance because we need to manage daily operations. We need to prepare for inflation, economic downturns, and then unexpected costs. June 30th for most districts is the high point in their school cash flow, not an indication of their unused funds. This cap ignores the natural cash flow throughout the year due to timing of when revenue is received. Usually I receive my February tax settlement in February. Well, this year it didn't come till March. So those things always happen. So we need to be able to prepare for them. In addition, I have a lot of money invested in longer term issues like notes and treasury bills so that we can make money off that interest. Well, I don't know how that's going to work if I have to pull things out early. So that, I mean, there's all these things that we have to think about. Let's see. Having a strong cash balance is one of the factors that that helps in securing a solid bond rating. So if we ever were to pass a bond issue, higher bond ratings translate to lower borrowing costs, which in turn is less cost to the voters. This type of implementation is going to cause inconsistency from county to county on how property taxes are calculated. The other thing that's going to be very confusing is how tax bills are going to look, because one year you may get a tax bill that it shows that there's a credit, and it's going to say because of the district's, extra cash balance. Then the next year, if we fall below that 30%, you could get a tax bill that goes way up because they're going to collect more money to put us at that 30%. So it's going to cause confusion among taxpayers. And I think it's going to weaken the trust between school districts and the community. So the final graph that I provided was done by a former school treasurer who does forecasting now. And what this shows is statewide, all the school districts ending cash balances. And in here, it has the influx of all the ESSER dollars. It has the implementation of years 1 through 4 of the Fair School Funding Plan. It has those few years where all property tax values have risen across the state. But what he wanted to prove by this is without any type of restrictions on any of this legislation passing, school district cash balances are going to naturally fall. They're going to resolve on their own. So I just wanted to show you that so that you could have an accurate or have an idea of how that's going to work. I didn't touch on vouchers. I gave you a handout that talks about school funding. It does touch on vouchers in that you could have that handout in case you are approached by the community. The myths about school funding. Not to get on my soapbox, but it just seems as we're being hit from all sides from the state legislatures and they're really against public education right now, and we need to do our best to convince them that this is not the way to go. Sabrina and I have already written letters to our legislators on these subjects. We are going to request that we're going to send stuff out to the community, requesting them to contact legislators and parents and staff, so.
I'll be including in, what we refer to as the Rampage, our school newsletter. I'll be sure as part of my portion of that to explain some of these pieces as well. So we can garner support, again, to reach out to our legislators who, and many are listening. So, when you think that your voice doesn't matter, I'm close enough to it, sitting in this seat, that I do believe our voice matters. And it's important to tell our story and to specifically talk about our school, and our community and how this could impact us in a very personal way. So I am encouraged by the last 2 weeks for all of the pieces that you heard. But again, that said, we have been able, even at, the superintendent level and at the organization level, the BASA level, that we have been able to engage legislators who are at least listening. And so I appreciate that, and I am hopeful that they will take in more information and consider that as we proceed in the past on the state budget.
Are they gonna take like written testimony before the Senate vote?
I think so. Yeah, you can submit written testimony. You can go in person. Yes, they are.
I think there will be Greene County representation there, possibly. I can think of one, at least maybe two, that might be interested in that.
We get advocacy emails from OASDO every day, explaining how the process works and any updates that happen because every day something new is happening, so.
So it's overall carryover dollars, it's not general fund?
General fund only.
General fund only carryover,
Mhm.
so it's only a carryover from,
Unencumbered carryover balance.
okay.
Mhm.
So you could have to get strategic about what you keep in the general fund
Correct.
to make sure that you're not exceeding that balance
That's correct.
by planning for future
Mhm.
capital projects
Yes.
or things like that. to move into
Maintenance,
those
any
funds.
type of things like that, yes. Mhm.
And all of this is still just, I mean, it's in the House budget, but it's not, this won't.
Yeah. Would
We,
you explain the process again?
Sure.
Actually, you started with that, but now that we
Sure.
have context.
Sure. So, yeah, this was the House their original version had a 25% cap. When they voted and passed it, it was a 30% cap. So the House voted, they passed it. It now moves to the Senate, and I was told that this was a question that I didn't fully understand, so I asked last week. So why the House is working on their version, the Senate is also in the background working on theirs. So then the Senate's going to take testimony, and then I think it's March, when do we end? Late May, they'll unveil their proposal. Then they'll vote probably beginning of June. The House will come with their version, the Senate will come with theirs. They'll meet in what's called a conference committee and try to come up with one budget bill version that they present to the governor.
so this is probably gonna change a little bit over the next
Yes.
couple of months, so, but this is where we are today.
This is where we are today.
Thank you for all the information.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Keeping your finger on the pulse. Appreciate that. Any board members have any updates? Here? Okay. All right, moving on to item 8, comments, questions for non-agenda items. Invitation for public participation on non-agenda items only. Or any public participation?
Yes.
Okay. Just a couple quick reminders. Anyone who would like to address the board gets 3 minutes to do so. And if you could just please state your name at the beginning, and that's all we need from you from that. So you just come up to the table here if you like.
It's a little bit long, sorry. My name is Shayla Smith, and I'm speaking on behalf of my children and some of the Greeneview families. I just want to be clear that our kids are not safe within this district. They're being bullied, they're being harassed, targeted with racial slurs. And the adults in charge are either ignoring it or brushing it off. Students are being called the N-word. They're told to go pick cotton. They're mocked for their weight, disabilities, and their race. Some have been threatened with gun violence, some physically assaulted, and some are so traumatized they've talked about self-harm to where the parents have had to pull them out of school and transfer them to another. Others have been pushed, groped, and degraded, and nothing is being done. Parents have emailed, called, and sat in meetings and have gotten silence, excuses, or disrespect in return. In some cases, the superintendent and principals have literally laughed while people have shared their painful experiences. So tonight I want to ask that each of you sitting on the board that, are you aware of these incidents? Do you know how many parents have reached out to you or to your administration and received no response or completely inappropriate ones? And if you weren't aware, why are you not? And if you were, what have you done about it? Because we're telling you right now that this is a pattern of neglect, discrimination, and failure, and it has gone on for far too long. We're demanding accountability for the staff and administrators who fail to act, a formal outside investigation, enforce anti-racism and anti-bully policies, and real consequences for the harm being caused. We're done being ignored, and we need you guys to protect our kids.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. All right, item 9, adjournment. I would entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll second.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Arthur is absent. Mr. Bailey,
Yes.
Mrs. Connor,
Yes.
and Mr. Powers.
Yeah.
Motion passes. We are adjourned at 7:30.